Hi, my name is Martin Super, and I would like to talk to you about St. Martin's Church in Brusane, Croatia. I hope you can give me a couple minutes of your time to explain what we're trying to do here. And also, I know this is a little bit rudimentary when it comes to YouTube standards, but I'm just trying to get the information to you. So I hope you can give me a little grace on the quality of my video, but at the very least, take in the information, decide what you'd like to do. St. Martin's Church is located in Brusane, Croatia. And Brusane is in the area of Croatia known as Lika. In 1881, this area officially became part of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Before that, it was a military frontier between Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire. The church was constructed in 1885, and this was a time of a lot of construction and investment in not just this region of Croatia, but in a lot of different regions of Austria-Hungary, where they were building new roads, churches, schools, government buildings, etc. And this church was built during that time period. And it was one of the few times of peace that this area would see for a very long time. And conflict and oppression really became the way of life for these people from about 1914 to about 1993. In World War I, Austria-Hungary was fighting a two-front war against Italy, their former ally, which a lot of people were known as the Italian betrayal, and Russia. This picture you see here, these troops marching off to war, this is an actual picture from Gospić, Croatia, where the 79th Graf Ban Jelačić Regiment was stationed, and people from Brusane and close by Rezvanusha, which are the two little towns that are served by St. Martin Church, this would have been the military unit that they would have been in. So undoubtedly there are some residents from Brusane and Rezvanusha in this picture, and this is them marching off to war, World War I. In addition to all the young men leaving, there was a drought that struck during World War I, and also added to that a lack of laborers because of World War I, and it caused massive food shortages on the home front. People were starving. And then without the added police and troops at home, bandits began raiding villages for food. So what little food people did have was stolen. They were attacked. There were assaults. There was murders. It was a very difficult time. And I think the biggest issue was these people of Brusane. I don't think they could have foresaw that things would only get worse for them. Austria-Hungary fell in World War I, and Yugoslavia took control. Yugoslavia is essentially the name of a nation that was put under the command of the Serbians. The Serbian royal family basically took control of several countries that were forcibly put together to create Yugoslavia. Shortly after that, on December 5th, Croatian soldiers peaceably protested the creation of this new state without any Croatian say, and the Serbian police officers fired upon them. This protest was then labeled an insurrection, and oppression spread throughout of Croatia. In April 16, 1919, they banned all public meetings that were not pre-approved by the government. There was even things like a religious procession in Sin, celebrating Our Lady of Sin, where Serbian police officers and soldiers attacked an unarmed religious procession. Widespread government violence became the norm. People were arrested for voting for Croatian candidates or saying they were going to vote for Croatian candidates. So Croatians stopped voting, and then they got arrested and beaten for not voting. Catholics were often attacked and randomly shot at, leaving Mass. And in 1930, they stopped beating people. They just started arresting them and putting them in prison and letting them starve to death. And this was really the norm from 1918 to 1940. These people lived these lives where the police, the government, and the military only really existed to keep them under their thumb. And their only refuge was this church that they had, because at any time their lives were on the line. In 1932, a group of Croatians, armed and trained in Italy, attacked the police station in Brusane. This was kind of a reprisal attack for everything that had been done to the civilian population. In that attack, one Serbian policeman was injured. Nobody was killed. There was a little bit of property damage, but in the grand scheme of things, the attack was not that big of a deal. It was more symbolic in nature. But 14 men and boys from Brusane were arrested, and they were beaten for assisting or not reporting. And here's the names. Jure Rukavina, for instance, was beaten so badly that he was put on a stretcher with no medical care from the beating that he received, and they brought him into the court to find him guilty of being an insurrectionist, and he couldn't even get up off the stretcher. He had been beaten so bad. So these 14 people were arrested to be made examples of. And then a little bit later, that wasn't enough for them. On December 8th, 1932, the Serbian police officers again dragged 23 people out of their homes and beat them in the streets. And this was not simply men. People as young as 23, but there was two elderly, Sule Devčić and Mikan Lisić, 92 and 73 years old, pulled out of their houses and beaten as an example to the population on what happens to you if you even try to resist in the least amount of them. So with World War II, people kind of got hopeful. Croatia gained independence from Yugoslavia under German occupation, and people thought things would get better, but things only got worse. On July 27, 1943, local Serbs began attacking Croatian Catholic and Muslim communities as opposition to German occupation. Now, keep in mind, they weren't attacking military installations, they were attacking villages and communities. Brusane was attacked indiscriminately by mortars and artillery. They essentially just started shelling the village with the people in it. And a lot of people didn't know even which direction the fire was coming from. There were some Croatian soldiers in the village, and they attempted to take refuge in the church. Well, this was an excuse then for those Serb forces to attack the church. They ended up hitting it with mortars and artillery, and they lit it on fire. And when it was lit on fire, about 30 people died within the church. And at that point, the church was left in ruins. In addition to that, 30 Croatian houses in Brusane were burned to the ground. The school was burned to the ground, and about 80 people were murdered that night. And we're talking a village that today only has about 160 people in it, but at the time had a population, as far as I can tell, of about 300. So imagine you have a community of 300 people, and 80 people are killed in one night. 30 houses are burned down. The church is burned down. The school is burned down. And then when you think it can't get any worse, even Wikipedia admits that numerous war crimes happened on that particular night. But after the war, the communists obviously come to power in Yugoslavia, and they decide to make that day when your village is attacked, that day when your church is burned down, your house is burned down, your school's burned down, 80 of your neighbors and family members are killed, they decide to make that a holiday that you are now forced to celebrate. And that holiday was called the Uprising Day of the Croatian People. So even though it was Serbs in Croatia that did those attacks, and even though those attacks targeted civilian populations, the communist government makes that a state holiday. The Church of St. Martin is still basically left in ruins. I'm sure they tried to have mass in there, but the church was in really bad shape. So in 1958, some locals from Brusane and nearby Brusane fixed the roof of the church in the middle of the night to avoid persecution by the authorities. In 1961, they replaced a church bell because the other bell was obviously taken during or slightly after the war. However, between 1945 and when the Croatian War of Independence or the Yugoslav Civil War starts, 67 Croatians from Brusane and 38 from Brusane are killed by the communist Yugoslav governments. Can you imagine that? After what happened in World War I, after what happened after World War I, after what happened during World War II, and then after that, for the government to again target and kill you. But they never lost their faith. And this church was the cornerstone of really what got them through that. Can you imagine people all around you are being arrested and killed, and you still have the faith in the middle of the night to get some materials together and repair the church, not knowing if that would cause a reprisal or not. Repair a church that the state created a holiday celebrating that church being burned down, celebrating those Croatian houses getting burned down, celebrating murder That was a state holiday. And you were going to put your life on the line to repair that church. What faith these people have. Faith far more than we could ever understand. So Croatia starts to get its independence in 1990. By 1991, Croatia's an independent country, and shortly thereafter, war breaks out. Brusane and Ravnica were both very close to the front lines. Catholics went to Mass with the sound of warfare all around them. They could hear the machine guns firing. They could hear the mortars exploding. They could hear the artillery. They could see the planes flying overhead. And yet they still went to Mass. And this situation existed almost until 1994. But the church was still their cornerstone. So after the war ended, and finally, since 1914, this community had seen some sort of peace. Well, the roof that was put up in 58 obviously was done over the course of one night. So in the year of 2000, a new roof was put on, and there was a fundraiser in the U.S. to put that new roof on, but we really didn't get many more repairs than that done. So here I want to show you. This is the exterior of the church. And as you can see, the stucco has really seen better days, and it's really in bad shape. And as you can see down here at the bottom, there are a lot of water issues where water's getting in. Now, they've put some drainage in. They're going to have to put some more drainage in. This is the inside of the church, and this is around the altar where you can see that the floor and the bottom of the wall have been brought up because there's serious issues. Here especially I want to show you. Do you see all this wetness here? All on the left side. That's all water that's either coming up from the ground or from the exterior wall not being sealed. So to keep the church upright, these repairs need to happen, or essentially the church is going to be in a situation where it's going to fall down. And so this is really what I want you to stop and think. Think about the faith of the people who put their lives on the line to keep this church going. Through almost 100 years of violence, oppression, that they still maintained this church and kept it up. This is the floor. You can see where there was wetness and water issues. They started opening that floor up, and you can see here's one of the original kind of cobblestones, and this is what the floor looks like underneath. And you can see where all the water issues are and other repair issues need to happen. So this is what I'm asking you. After all this tragedy, after all these things have happened, could you donate? Could you spare some money to help us repair this church? In this picture here, you can see how beautiful Brusane really is. And if we turned around, we could see Ravnica behind us. This church serves both of these small villages. Over there in the upper left by the woods, you can see the cemetery, which crosses over the river on the left. You can see even in the middle of the picture here, people have started to build vacation homes here because it is so beautiful. And the Velebit Mountains are all around. But there's the church there on the right. And that church has really been a symbol of these people's faith, and it's a symbol of this community, the center of this community. So I'm asking you, could you spare some money? Could you help repair this church and continue on the faith of these people who have been through so much? If you have $100, donate $100. If you can donate $500 or even $1,000, I beg you, donate that. But if those numbers sound insane to you, if you go, Martin, I don't have $20 to donate. Okay. Do you have $10 to donate? Do you have $5 to donate? Could you donate any amount? If you look in the description of this video, you will find a link to our fundraising site where you can make a donation of any amount. Even if at the very least you can give up one drink at the bar, or give up one fancy coffee, or even give up the cost of one fancy dinner. Say, I'm going to donate $50, or I'm even donate $5. Any donation will go a long way to keep this going. Search in your heart, think about your own faith, think about your own spiritual journey, and know that you could help these people who kept their faith through tremendous, tremendous hardships. Thank you so much for your time. God bless.